We're going to be hunting some new properties this fall, and we decided to take advantage of that and show you guys how we map scout, then how we scout with boots on the ground, then how we go in and hunt, so you guys can follow that throughout the season. So we're going to do a quick 2-video map scouting series here to show you how we map scout these new properties that we're going to be hunting this fall. Like I mentioned, we're going to do a couple map scouting videos here over some new properties that we're hunting this fall. But before I get to that, I want to mention these new shirts. The shirt that I'm wearing right here, this is one of the shirts that we have. We have about 4 or 5 different kind of logo shirts that you guys can purchase and a couple stickers. Just head over to the link down below in the description. That'll take you to the store and you can purchase one of these shirts. We'd really appreciate it if you guys would do that. We've been doing a lot of map scouting and stuff like that. So if you guys have gotten any value from the content you see or the map scouting that we've done for you, we'd appreciate it if you guys would support us, purchase one of these shirts. It just helps us be able to go out, hunt more places, and do this a little bit more. So check out that link down below if you want to check out some of these t-shirts. But we'll jump right into what we're going to be doing with this map scouting series. So you guys have seen us do map scouts for viewers before, but sometimes it's hard once you see that map scout to know what happens next. What happened when that person went in there and scouted it? What happened when they hunted it? You can't follow along to kind of see the spots we picked, if those turned out to be good spots or if they're bad spots. So we want to take advantage of the fact that we'll be hunting some new pieces of public land this fall so that you can see what we're picking out on the maps to all the way through the season hunting those spots. So we're going to kind of do this, I think, in a 2-part series. The first video that we're going to talk about today is going to be hunting small pieces of public land, small properties, how we map scout those. Then I'm going to go in, I'm going to do some boots on the ground scouting, and so I'm going to point out the spots that we picked out on the map, what they look like in person, if they're good spots, if they're bad spots, and then how we'd hunt them. And then the second video is we're just going to map scout an area, then we're going to go in and hunt it. So we're not going to do any boots on the ground scouting in that second video. It's just going to be kind of like if you would wanted to go out of state, you just picked a spot on the map, picked out that piece of public land, you looked at it on a map, and then you're going to go there and hunt it. So that's what we're going to do. And we're going to try to do our best as we go along to kind of pinpoint which spots that we're talking about when we're hunting them, when we're scouting them, so that you guys can follow along so that you know which areas we talk about. So we have quite a few areas. We're going to do our best, especially with this map scouting series of videos here, to use a logo or something that lets you guys know what spot it is and what we're looking at. And in the video, we're probably going to reference that point. We'll throw a map up so you know kind of the progression from map scout to what it looks like in the field. So we'll do our best to make it easy for you guys to follow along with us. But starting out with this video, we're going to look at some small pieces of public land property. And we always get asked, what's small? What do you mean by small pieces of public land? For this map scout, that means a property that's 34 acres, a property that's about 84 acres, and a property that's about 180 acres. So those are the spots that we're going to be looking at. Most of them are kind of lake slash marsh habitat slash hardwoods with some oaks in there. So those are the properties that we're going to be looking at, but just based off the population, I feel like there's going to be more people hunting. So the key for us on these properties, even though they're small properties, is still access. I'm going to use those lakes for kayak access, have some unique access to get to places that other people can't get to. And I'm also going to be able to try to get away from the parking areas. Most of these areas have like 1 or 2 designated parking areas, and then they work back from there. So if I can get away from those parking areas, I think I'll be able to get away from that hunting pressure. So if you look at this spot right here, there's really only one access, and it starts down here at the bottom. So I'm going to try to get as far away from that access as I can. It's still a small property, so it's 34 acres. You're not going to be able to get that far away from the access and the parking areas, but you can do your best to still try to find those areas where other people aren't going. With it being so small and that lake taking up a lot of it, it's going to be hard to get to that back portion. So I'm going to use the kayak, like I said, to try to get back here to these areas that are farther away from those parking areas. Initially for this map, I marked 2 potential tree stand locations that work out from these draws. Those draws are on private land, but I marked these 2 stand locations where those draws meet the public. I kind of like the lower one a little bit better because it leads right into that marsh habitat. You got native browse and better bedding. So those are just 2 places that if I was going in there, those might be 2 places I go right to and do hanging hunts in both of those both of those places, trying to catch deer coming out of those draws, or if I'm going in there and scouting like I'm going to do, I'm going to go right to those points where those draws hit that fence line and look for trails. If I see trails or rubs coming in and out of those draws, then I know those are good places to go to. And I should mention that these places that I go to and scout, these might be terrible places. This 34 acres might be so small it's not worth hunting, might have a bunch of people in it, may be totally wrong to hunt this spot, but that's what the scouting's for. So I'm going to go map scout, pick out places that I think are good, and then that boots on the ground scouting is going to tell me if these places are worth it or not. I might go to both of these same locations where this draw is and be like, nope, not going to go there, no deer moving through there. So these are just potential spots to go and sit. So like I said, if I'm scouting, I'm going right here to where these draws meet the public, looking for buck tracks, looking for rubs leading in and out of those draws. If I find them there, then I'm going to mark that on my map and know I can come in and do hanging hunts right there. So that's the first initial step. First thing I pinpointed was these draws that lead into the public. I also marked a buck bedding location here. There's kind of like a marshy strip that runs through that CRP grass right there. That's a really good place for a buck to bed. They can bed in that marshy habitat in between that CRP. So just a good area to look at. You can either go in and do a hanging hunt and just watch that on your first hunt, or like I'm going to do, I'm going to go in and scout. I'm just going to walk right down the middle of that thing and look for beds. If I find beds, then I can formulate that plan to figure out how to hunt it. And the next thing, depending on the level of the lake and how much water is in it, we've got quite a bit of water this year, so it might be higher than normal. But if it looks like this map does, I can walk that marsh to hardwoods transition. And that's what I want to focus on, especially in this marshy habitat. You can also find bedding on there, especially on this one little point that sticks out into the marsh. Good area to find some buck beds right there. But I'm just going to walk that transition and look for buck sign. When it's so small like this, you just need to figure out, first of all, if it's worth hunting, if there's deer on there. And walking that transition, trying to pick up on sign, look for tracks in the marsh is a good place to start. So we're always focusing on those transitions. And you've seen us talk about that in our other map scouting videos. And if you've gotten a map from us, that's one of the big points that we like to hit. And especially here when you have that marsh to hardwoods transition. The final place I picked is kind of like a fence row bedding area on the right side of this lake. It just seems like an area that people are going to overlook. I can get there pretty easy. I can either walk around or I can just take the kayak, go straight across and go right into that stuff. Again, just a place I think people might overlook. And when I go there and scout, I'm just going to start on one end. I'm going to walk straight through it, looking for that sign and the beds that I'm looking for. If I find good stuff in there, I can either do a velvet scout or an observation sit down here on this corner. I can sit there, not intrude on any of that bedding, watch that field if there's soybeans in it, and see if deer are coming out from the marsh or from that bedding area. So just as simple as going through there, scouting up that fence line and seeing what I see. So we'll go ahead and jump to the next piece of public land, the next small piece that we're hunting. This one, again, is really small, just like the other one. There's not going to be a lot of places to hunt on this. If there's somebody else in there, it's probably going to push out a lot of the deer. But again, there's one access on the southern side. So if you can get yourself to the northern side of this property, you can get away from most of that hunting pressure and get to a place that the deer might be, because there is no road on the northern side for another mile, mile and a half. So if you can use your kayak, get off on the dock, use your kayak, and go all the way to this northern side and get up there in some of that, that might be your ticket to finding a buck on this property. So again, I've marked 3 potential buck bedding areas. You got one on the right side again. That sets up similar to the fence line bedding that I talked about on the last property. Just a ways across this lake, might be a place people aren't going. They can bed in between this ag field right here in the marsh. The next spot is all the way on the northern side. I don't have a predetermined spot that I'm going to hang and hunt right there. I'm just going to go in during hunting season, take my kayak, go up to that north side, get out and just go in there and find a good spot to set up, kind of do an observation sit in there, and then let that dictate my next move. It's not very big. It's probably only 1 or 2 acres up there, so you'll be able to see most of it and cover most of it. So I'm just going to go straight in there and look for buck bedding when I'm hunting or when I'm scouting. In the next area, the other bedding area is on the left side here. There actually is a transition here and some different habitat, some better marsh habitat. You can either come in and sit right there if you're going to hunt and do an observation sit and look over that stuff. I'm going to go in and scout it, so I'm going to walk those transitions and see what I see and walk in that marsh habitat, see if I don't find beds in there. So again, 3 bedding areas on this little property. I'm going to go in when I scout. It's so small, I'm just going to check them all and mark them off as good or bad. I might end up with only one spot like the spot before, but that's the spot I'm going to hunt. So I'm just going to go in, walk through this whole entire property since it's so small, and figure out if those buck bedding areas are good or not. Now we're going to jump to our third property here. Again, they're small properties, so we move pretty fast through them. This area has two spots that I'm looking for. I'm looking on the northern side. I'm looking at that marsh to hardwoods transition again, just like I was on the other two properties. I'm going to go in and scout. I'm going to walk that transition and see if I can't find buck bedding or buck sign. If I find buck bedding and buck sign along that transition, I'm going to follow it back into the woods looking for buck bedding. There's not a lot of room right there, so if I find some buck sign right along that marsh, I might hang right on that marsh or follow it back, because there just isn't much room for those bucks to bed in there. If they're along that marsh, they're going to be right there, right close to that marsh, and there is some diverse habitat there to the left side. So if I'm walking along that transition when I'm scouting and I see some good buck sign, I have a good idea that they're probably in that diverse habitat, and I can go in there and look for buck bedding. But on this property, it's as simple as this one spot on the northern side, but there's just a small transition on the southern side that you can use your kayak to get across that lake and get to that side where people probably aren't going. So the same things apply when we're map scouting these small properties as they do when we're map scouting the bigger properties. It doesn't matter if it's 50,000 acres or it's 50 acres, we're still looking for transitions, we're still looking for habitat diversity, we're still looking to pinpoint that buck bedding. So we're still looking for all of those same things on these small properties. There's just not going to be as many of them, and they may not be as obvious. So you can see with some of this map scouting, there's sometimes we have areas where like tree stand location here, tree stand location here. Other times we're like, this might be a bedding area, this might be a bedding area. Other times we're picking out the transition. So it's a really broad approach to our map scouting, and then we go into these areas and let what we see when we're on the ground scouting or hunting tell us what to do next. So there's these specific things that we're looking for on the map. Those are kind of focusing us down, helping us pick areas to go to. Then we go in and hunt. And this will become a little bit more clear as we go in and do the next part of this process, which is going to go in and scout these areas. These are really small properties. I've never been to any of these areas before. I have no idea what to expect. The deer density is higher in this area than it is back here at home. So it's going to be interesting to see if these small properties still hold deer like the larger properties do. But it's going to be interesting. I'm interested to find out if these small properties are any good or not. So like I mentioned before, the next video in this series that's related to this scouting of small properties is going to be me going in, scouting these properties and seeing what I find, and we'll let you know if these spots are going to be any good or not, or if we're just going to cross them off the list and move on to different spots. But thanks for watching, guys. As always, hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, check out these t-shirts, see if you want to buy one, pick one out, and help support us a little bit. So thanks for watching this map series video here. We'll be back in a couple days with another video showing you what it looks like on the ground in these spots.